I think it's good for sisters who don't know us personally to eventually see our story, because you really get to know a person if you know their stories.
One of the first questions we ask of our sister interviewees is about, of course, their early lives.
My mother had gone back from California to West Virginia to help my dad take care of the two older children, my brother Joe and Marie, and his wife died at birth when Joe was born. And so my mom went back to be the nanny for them. And 6 weeks later, she got married to my dad. And they were happily married all their life, 37 years. And I came along a year after they were married in July of 1933. And I grew up with Joe and Marie on the 500-acre farm for the elderly. The Sisters of Sacred Heart were taking care of that piece of property, and my dad was the farmer.
My mother settled in San Francisco, nursing at St. Luke's Hospital for a while. And when they married, they settled in St. Elizabeth's Parish because of the climate. And we spent all of our lives at St. St. And then I entered, after high school, there were Dominican sisters at St. Elizabeth's, and I went to all 12 years.
My mother decided that she would get some more education so she could become a teacher. And so we moved down to where the college was, which was Monmouth, Oregon. It's now the Oregon College of Education. We lived there for 2 years, and we lived in an apartment behind the main house of a mixed farm. So they had dairy, they had sheep, they had wheat fields, they tried to grow linen. The actual owner of the property was a professor at the college, and he was interested in biology, et cetera, et cetera. So it was a little bit of experimental. So we learned about cows and horses and sheep, watched the sheep shearing, and waded through the puddles in our rubber boots. Everybody wore rubber boots. Mine were cute. They had a red trim around the edge and the top of them, but anyway.
I had wonderful mom and dad, and I attribute to my love of God to my mom. My mom we used to pray the Psalms of David sometimes. My mom was raised as being a Catholic and have Jewish traditions in her family, but she was raised actually in a Methodist sporting school. So we had all this kind of I didn't know anything different that people didn't, I just thought people were people, and everybody loved God, but everybody loved God differently and worshiped differently, so it was great for me.
I grew up in a family that was very, very Catholic, very military. My dad was in World War I. My 5 oldest brothers were in World War II when I was a little girl. My youngest brother had to go to Korea, and the oldest one, who was a West Pointer, had to return to Vietnam. So my mother saw all of her sons through a lot of war. So we were very Catholic, very military, very masculine. They were all very sports-minded, almost fiendishly so, except for my mother and me. We were really left out of all that. I don't recall ever as a child ever having anybody read a fairy tale to me. I didn't know what they were. But I remember spending hours sitting and flipping through their crime magazines. They were fascinating to me, the pictures and the stories, when I eventually was able to read them. So that sort of put a little pocket in the back of my brain as to where I would be led eventually in my life and my ministry.
Well, my mom said to us one day, kids, every other kid brings home puppies and kittens. You bring home your friends. Why is this? it was a happy home, and people could come and live and enjoy it. And we had a cabin at Russian River, and so every summer we'd go up there, and everybody would come up there. I remember one night we had 24 people staying at this little cabin with a big porch. Anyway,
All the kids and
their friends.
all the friends.
I was born in Los Angeles, and I come from a long line of Angelinos. Both parents were born in Los Angeles. Some of my grandparents were born in Los Angeles. My great-grandfather came over from Germany in the late 1800s and set up a brewery. So we had a brewery on the German side of the family, and the Italian side, the Julies, were in the wine business. My sister's 3 years younger than I am. My brother is 17 years younger than I am. So he was just 3 when I entered the convent. I went to grammar school at Cathedral Chapel in Los Angeles, and then in the 7th grade, I came up to Flintridge and graduated in 1950. And I wanted to enter the convent, but my parents said, you've been around the sisters for so long, because we were boarding. And so go to college a year. So I went a year to college to Immaculate Heart. And then I entered.
I must say that somewhere along in the line in my high school days, I had a boyfriend who was very much in love with me, and at the senior prom he wanted me to marry him. And I told him I'd have to let him know in a year, because I was already signed up to go to the Mission San Jose Dominicans. And he was shocked because I never talked about it to anybody. None of my friends knew I was going to the convent, because I was one of the wilder or more active kids in the class and always around the boys. And Jerry and I went together for 2 years, and I left him behind and never had a remorse for what I must have done to him. But that was one of my episodes of my life.
I waited until my husband came home from Korea, and after a while I broached the subject to him. I said, I'd really like to be a Catholic, and I wondered if you would go with me, and just to see, if it was right for you. He said he would, and he did go to 2 meetings, but after that he said it wasn't right for him and he wasn't interested. He really thought that I could not be baptized without his permission, but of course I could, and I waited, and finally I was baptized. This led to countless arguments. He finally said I had to choose between him and the church. To make a long story short, I was freed through Rome by the favor of faith privilege, which is when a believer is married to a non-believer who refuses to live with them as a believer. This left me free to choose my state of life. It was also during this time that my parents were baptized.
Thank you. Thank you.
It looks like you brought some photos to share with us today. Could you tell us about this?
I just have this picture of my mom and dad and me when I was I guess I was first out, maybe. This is Sister Charlotte and Sister Mary Mark, myself, when we were at St. Boniface. We had a lot of fun together. I was teaching 2nd grade. I can't remember what grades they were teaching, but we had a great time at St. Boniface together.
I began my active ministry when I was 22 years old, and I loved teaching, and evidently my love for teaching showed in the classroom. And this following year I was given a student teacher to mentor, to help her with her plans and all. And through the years, I think I mentored about 13 of our sisters. And I just really grew into loving the children, and I never had to grow into loving them. I just really grew into my teaching career, and it was in the days when we had 60 children in the classroom and no teacher aide, and I taught most of that first years. I taught in first grade.
They sent me to San Gabriel Mission High School, and if I messed up in a class, it was over in 45 or 50 minutes, and I could start again with the next group of students, and I did very well. And of course, at that time in high school, if you were reasonably intelligent, they figured you could teach most anything. So my first year was, well, the biggest shock was journalism. I had done journalism in high school, and for 8 weeks before I entered, I worked for the Catholic Sentinel. Then I also taught English, second year history, American history, religion 1, and something, general science. I'm telling you, if you were reasonably intelligent, you were supposed to be able to handle all that. And Sister Clarice steered me gently through general science, so I was okay.
My first assignment was the military school, and I taught at St. Boniface in Anaheim for 1 year. And the second year I moved to the military school and taught the third grade in the morning and the seventh grade in the afternoon. After that, I was sent to St. Mary of the Palms, the Albertinum, and St. Vincent's, putting in about 2 terms in each one of our institutions.
I was vice principal my first job. That cracks me up today.
So you were second grade teacher.
And the only other sister on this.
Yes.
And then the next year I got first grade, so I
still
had
assistant?
so much fun. Yes, I was still assistant principal, but I loved first grade. This was before kindergarten as popular as it is now, but you could watch them learn.
Yes.
Just the eyes, that you could see what was going on.
And you know, the classes turned out to be almost like a little family. And one time we had to make a decision we had to split up the classes because some kids were now they were second year high, one particular class I had. And it was, I had 2 girls and 4 boys in the class. There was 6 kids. And then this boy, Andrew, got up and he said, I liked him because his name was Andrew. But anyway, he got up and he said, now we have to think of this through. We've got to get something together. He said, because we're a family here. We don't want to split up, you know. So that was my first time that I could understand that they really felt like a family. Because when they worked together, you know, and they did things together every week. So in a sense, the music classes, or if you have art classes or dance classes or karate now or tennis, whatever, you have to do it every week. And it goes on for years usually, not for the one time. So music, if they started in second grade or kinder music, I usually had them until they graduated from high school, you know, usually. And so that's a steady thing in their life. I've had a couple of children that was a good thing for them because they had maybe a divorce in the family and they were going from here to there. And then, of course, some go to different schools. They have to keep changing. And some, you know, they go to different grades, different teachers. So this one steadying factor is the music teacher, you know, if they continue their music lessons. So so many of them, you know, I feel like they're my children, and so many of them come back with their children, and it's like they're my grandchildren, my great-grandchildren.
So you're teaching your grandchildren now?
I am now. I'm actually teaching some of the great-great-grandchildren.
Oh my gosh.
Because some of my first students are in their 50s and going on to more their 60s, you know.
All these adventures were interlarded with college work. And I continued with my history major and picked up an English minor and, of course, an education minor. And did Latin American history by correspondence while I was teaching the 8th grade. It was all fun. And I went to USF and was a history major and had some very good teachers there. And by 59, I was ready to finish my thesis, which was about Russian history in the Russian Revolution.
There's something that I've always admired about you, and that is you are known to have like a call within a call to serve the poor. And tell me a little bit about what that call is like, and you seem to land in assignments that bring you right into close contact with those who are less fortunate. So tell us about your call.
Well, I just feel close to people who are poor because I guess I was poor when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. But and I see their strugglings, and like when I worked in Ramona Gardens, I would see the people there how confined their life was, because they couldn't have certain things and they had to stick to certain rules and regulations, and it was hard for them. And I noticed that in the children too, they would come to school kind of dirty sometimes, and they didn't have all the care that they needed.
The fact that you have experienced many years of helping those folks who need extra support, it's a beautiful part of your own story and your ministries.
I asked to go to Mexico. And so I was in Mexico in Chiapas with our sisters, ministering to the Indigenous for 8 years. And then, I don't know, I've always, at a certain point, come to that, where it's time to get out, it's time to move on, mm-hmm. It's time to let somebody else, come in with fresh ideas. So I came back. Of course, at that time in Mexico, it was just before the Zapatista uprising. Mm-hmm. I left in August of '93, and the uprising was January 1st, 1994. And our people were the Zapatistas. Mm-hmm. We were working with them. We knew it was going to happen. Mm-hmm. I didn't leave because of that, but federal police came to the house looking for me after I left. They kind of blamed the church. The teachings and the Jesus was the first revolutionary, and so anyway.
The parents wanted the Secondaria so urgently that they would do anything to help us. And we had all of this donation of goods, and our garage was always full. The moving vans used to come and fill up the basement with just household things. And at the end, they started sending furniture, compressed wood furniture. It was not expensive, but the people came from all over the hillside. Some people came with trucks and filled up their little pickup trucks and went to their own villages and sold. And one thing Sister Mary Thomas told me, she said, you may have the Secondaria if you pay for it and you don't ask for any sisters. Well, we had teachers in Mexico who were ready to come and teach in our Secondaria. And so we began, first with the 7th grade, then the 8th grade, and then we added the 9th grade, and I was there for the groundbreaking of the Secondaria, when we had the big ceremony. That's a big ceremony in Mexico, and for the graduation of that first class. So I spent 13 years, my first trip to Mexico, in Robert F. Kennedy School.
So when did you go then finally over to the Franciscans to work with St. Anthony's Dining Room?
In 1975, Sister Mary Henry told me that Father Alfred was looking for somebody to work with the seniors in his parish. And I remember going to him around the middle of December and talking to him. Well, he did most of that talking. He told me all about his plans, and at the end of the half hour, asked me, when can you start? Not asking me if I had any talents or any education. And I said, well, give me a month and I'll be over here. And so at the end of the month, I started working with the seniors that lived at the Madonna. And it gradually developed into more direct social work with the people that lived in the Tenderloin and that frequented our dining room. Later, we did more direct work with the homeless, helping people with mental problems, getting psychiatric care for them, doing money management for people that got funds from the county or from the government.
We had to establish the school as being a positive place, and that's why I started development. And it was really, by the seat of your pants till you get some education. And so I was grateful to get that MA. The Motherhouse sent me from the foundation, so that was nice. Anyway, that was important for us as a school because we started building from then. And we needed a capital campaign in '89 after the earthquake. And so I went to Gladys Valley and I said to her, Gladys, we need to do something to make the place safe and sound and, build it up so that we have what we need. And she said to me, and I said, we need $1 million from the Valley Foundation. And she said, she and her CEO came, and she said, what will we do if we can't give you $1 million? And I said, then we're done, we'll close the doors. And she said, I said, yours would be the leadership gift that would inspire other foundations to contribute. I said, without you, we're done. So she gave us $800,000 that first from the foundation, with $100,000 from that for the office to get the campaign in gear, which was very good because we wouldn't have had any money to do it with. I never thought of it. Anyway, and they have been incredible ever since. They've put $5 million into the high school over the years.
Earlier we were talking about the importance of study, but you also talked about the practical side of yourself.
I would set up a dark room. I've set up 3 dark rooms, set up 2 computer labs. I've made furniture for school besides those tables, and for the convent at Mary Crest when we finally had a convent, I did all that. I have gardened, I have grown vegetables. I really enjoy, I haven't done it very often, but I really enjoy putting a good meal on the table for my sisters.
That's so beautiful. That's beautiful.
Well, I cooked at Mary Crest, and then I cooked at Sacred Heart, and we took turns, and it's just a really nice thing to be able to do. Just get a good meal on the table.
An act of love. It's a real act of love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever. Let's not get gooey about things.
You've always been like that. And I've always been like this.
And
And one other one that was very touching to me, and this again was when I was working with the women. We had Mass one morning about 6:30, and I don't know, but I was not focused, and I found it to be almost boring. And all of a sudden I realized Mass was over. I had gone to communion, I hardly knew it. And I walked out feeling like I shouldn't have even gone this morning. And I remember praying, dear God, help Eucharist to have some meaning for me. I felt very bereft that day. Well, that day I had to go down to the hall again. And I was walking down the hall, and all the screaming and yelling and the expletives going on and off the wall, people acting smart. And all of a sudden I heard, chaplain, chaplain, and a little hand came out. And I looked at that little hand, and I went down, and she grabbed me and held onto it really tight and started crying through her little slot and just held on for life. And she began to pour out her story to me of what was wrong. And she was terrified being down there in the dark. And I looked down at the two hands intertwined, and I said to myself, this is Eucharist. This is my body being given over for you. Mm-hmm. And then I thought, well, was I giving my body to her, or was she giving her body to me? Because we were clinging together. Mm-hmm. And then it was that I could talk with her and give her a blessing and assure her that I would be there for her. And as I walked away from that, I thought to myself, what is this mystery of Eucharist? Mm-hmm. What is it that God calls us to be a Christed presence for one another? Because we were both a present to each other. It was as if I needed that little hand as much as she needed mine.
Yes.
And a week later when I was, or maybe several weeks later when I was on the floor, a little voice called me, chaplain, and I turned and she came over with a smile and she said, I'm the one that was in the hole and you came by and held my hand. She said, when you touched me, that gave me all the strength that I would need to get through that time, and I just want to thank you. Mm-hmm. And I thought, what a mystery Eucharist is, and how beautiful that I got to be the one to sit at the banquet table.
In 1975, I was transferred to Immaculate Conception Academy as treasurer for 11 years. We had a 4-phase building project that culminated in a gymnasium, classroom, chapel annex. We also started an endowment. I was the first development director and started the school lunch program. I spent 3 of the summers while I was at ICA to earn my MSA in institutional accounting at Notre Dame, Indiana. My next assignment was to the Motherhouse as congregational treasurer for 14 years. During my term there, we cashed out cars in convents. That is, we asked for a higher stipend and bought our own cars and leased or rented convents. During this time, we went into Onlock, we built a college building, went into SSI and Medi-Cal, and began the Pia Bacchus Support Trust, which is for retired sisters. I was a member of CORT, Conference of Religious Treasurers, of which I was once a president and once the treasurer, and we were very instrumental in getting lay parity for religious in San Francisco, Oakland, and San Jose dioceses.
What are you doing now for your ministry?
Well, I'm helping in kindergarten at Sacred Heart. I teach religion 2 or 3 times a week, and I do some tutoring, and I help in other ways in the kindergarten.
Yes.
So I only have a half a day. So.
Well, that's good, because you're about ready to observe a jubilee, like your 70th jubilee.
70th.
And that's in a year or 2 from now, right?
No, next year.
Next year already. Mm-hmm. Yes, so...
So the time is coming.
The time is coming for another celebration.
And I meet a lot of... all of a sudden somebody will come up being at Sacred Heart, I've been there quite a while, they'll come up and say, "Oh, you had me in the first grade." I said, "Oh, I don't remember," because they were little. Now they're
Right.
probably grandfather.
Right. Yes.
So
That's true.
I
Yes.
meet so many of them. Just any, In fact, yesterday when we went to the day at the races, somebody came up and said, "Oh, you had my brother in Sacred."
Oh, yeah.
So
That's
yes,
wonderful.
I meet a lot of people. That,
Yes. And you had such an impact then on those students who remember you. That's a beautiful, beautiful story. What are the values that you have found to be important in your life?
To accept people,
Yeah.
not to be prejudging them and thinking, expecting them to act a certain way.
Well, one of the big thing is humor.
No.
I think humor. I mean, it carries you and it carries other people. And I've always been playing jokes on people. I remember that in kindergarten was the first time I played a joke on the sister on April Fool's Day. I put a thread underneath a coin and put it in the aisle and yanked it away when she came and picked it up. That's my only recollection about it. And then in the 5th grade, I got caught passing a cartoon around the classroom. So anyway, I've always, so humor, I think is important. Also, that vision of Mother Pia with the ministry to the vulnerable and the poor.
And the poor.
Yeah, and I certainly, had that in Mexico. I learned liberation theology in Mexico, and working with Bishop Samuel Ruiz.
Yeah.
And so, firsthand experience in that culture really gets ingrained.
Yeah.
So, and I feel that, we need to respond to those. I mean, and today you can respond in writing, emailing the legislators. Yeah.
That's
so.
right.
To be close to your family, I think that's important. Your family is, to me, my family is very important.
Yes.
And also, I have a lot of other friends, and they are good too. And I think it's good to have a variety of
Yes.
friends, relatives, sisters,
That's
and
right.
grow with them. I think that's values that we have.
And I know what it is like to be frightened and to be scared, so I try to encourage my kids. I said, I give them all the things that I tell myself sometimes, But to see them get the light, to see them succeed, even if it's playing the scale right, even just to get the chord, when they say, oh yeah, or all this, I can't do this, I can't do it. Yes, you can. Look at the patterns, And they see the patterns, and it's so, it's just, all this is like their eyes open. Or I said, now listen to the colors, try to get this in it. Don't just make it sound. Make the sound like something, Draw a picture with a sound, and shade it, So we're drawing stories, or how you feel, What's the name of the piece? Especially the little ones. It says running. Do I hear running? So then they want to play running, So it's just it's discovery. And it's discovery of who they are and what life is, in a sense. And it's, for me, discovery how great God has, that each person, each individual is different. Each mind is so different. Each mind is so great. Each life is so precious. And everyone was creation, it's, I can't tell you, it's my living color.